Can you show how to link against includes and libs in VS Code? Can you show how to link against libs in VS Code and includes in Visual Studio Code? Yeah, sure, but it has nothing to do with Visual Studio Code. It is just a compiler thing, brother. A compiler wants you to link and include. So, for example, a compiler would like you to Clang, for example, in this case, we use Clang++ here. They want you to link libraries using the -L operator. So, L, user32, L, -L, sorry, GDI32, -L, OpenGL32. And then if you want to add another folder to look at libraries, you know, so that the compiler can take not only a look at the Windows libraries, but let's say your own libraries, let's say FreeType, for example, in this case, you specify a capital L and give it a relative folder path to where, either a relative folder path to where the executable is being compiled. So in my case, that would be the folder Cakez framework here at the top. Let me make that bigger. And if I were to, like, I don't know, einklappen in English, right? This is where the build file is. So relative to this path, there you can see third party. That is what I'm linking against here. I'm adding this third party lib path, which means this folder right here. This is where you can say FreeType, SDL, SDL2.main, collapse. Oh, thank you, man. Thank you. Collapse. Yeah, thank you, guys. And then you add in the other lib. So we need a file like build.sh in VS Code. No, you don't need a file like build.sh. You can use CMake, of course. Let me open up the build.batch file. You can also, but this is a terrible example. It's too big, man. I'm sorry, this is a terrible example by me. There's too many things going on here. Essentially, you should probably learn how C++ builds its executables before you ask questions about how to build in Visual Studio Code or in Visual Studio, because this is the unfortunate side effect of using Visual Studio from the get-go. They take away, basically, the way C++ builds is by having a compiler that could be CL, that's from Microsoft, or that could be Clang. And then in using that Clang file, you use a main.cpp file to compile it. And it's trying to find that Clang file right here, that Clang command is a compiler that, I wonder if I can find that here even. Probably not. Actually can. That Clang binary file is an executable that is called a compiler that you can install on your Windows machine. That compiler is not there by default. It is a specific program, an executable that is compiling your C++ code files. It's looking for a main function and some other things into its own executable that can then be run by the operating system. And so in order to understand how you build, let's say in Visual Studio or in Visual Studio Code, you need to learn what a compiler in C++ is and how to invoke that compiler to build programs. And the easiest way to do that is to find a very basic tutorial about C and C++. And I think the best one that I can show you, I think he does a really good job. There you go. This guy shows you hopefully how to install a compiler and use the compiler on the command line. It's learning, bro. I think what I can recommend to you is a basic C++ tutorial. You should probably do that first. Start from the very beginning. Get to know the background of how a C++ program is built, and then you will understand easier on how, let's say, you can build a program in Visual Studio Code or Visual Studio for that matter. Because Visual Studio hides all of this behind their own options, like their own UI and stuff.